Test, 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 test. All right, good morning. Let's try that again. Good morning. My name is Dr. Cedric Hackett, and I'm with the Department of Africana Studies, and also the director of the W.E.B. Du Bois and Fannie Lou Hamer Institute for Academic Achievement.
And my name is Diane Philibosian, professor in the Department of Recreation and Tourism Management and consultant to the Institute for Community Health and Well-Being.
As narrators for this morning's event, it is our pleasure to welcome you to our 34th annual Honors Convocation.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise. and remain standing while the CSUN Jazz A Band, under the direction of Professor Matt Harris, plays the national anthem. Professor Shoshana Stern and graduates from the Deaf Studies Department will be signing, accompanied by Sarah Salazar.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You may now be seated. The Platform Party is here to honor these remarkable students. Please join me in acknowledging our distinguished Platform Party. Please rise as you're introduced, and I would ask the audience to please hold your applause until the entire Platform Party and special guests have been introduced. On the first row, from right to left, Jeff Noblet, Associate Vice President for Marketing and Communications. Dr. Michael Neubauer, Vice Provost. Rick Evans, Executive Director for the University Corporation. Dr. William Watkins, Vice President for Student Affairs and Dean of Students. Jill Smith, Chief of Staff, Office of the President. Dr. James Burke, Business and Community Leader and today's keynote speaker. Dr. Diane F. Harrison, University President. Dr. E. Lee, Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs. Dr. Adam Swenson, Faculty President. Hillary Baker, Vice President for Information Technology and Chief Information Officer. Colin Donahue, Vice President for Administration and Finance and Chief Fiscal Officer. Dr. Robert Gonzalez, Vice President for University Advancement. Jorge Reyes, Associated Student Vice President.
On the second row from right to left, we have Dr. Daniel Hoskin, Interim Dean for the Mike Curb College of Arts, Media, and Communication. Dr. Kenneth Lord, Dean for the David Nazarian College of Business and Economics. Dr. Michael Spagna, Dean for the Michael D. Eisner College of Education. Dr. S.K. Ramesh, Dean for the College of Engineering and Computer Science. Dr. Tammy Abaresk, Interim Dean for the College of Health and Human Development. Dr. Elizabeth Say, Dean for the College of Humanities. Dr. Jerry Stinner, Dean for the College of Science and Mathematics. Dr. Stella Theodoulou, Dean for the College of Social and Behavioral Sciences. Ms. Joyce Foot Javier, Dean for the Zing College of Extended Learning. Carlos Fuentes, President of the CSUN Alumni Association. And Dr. Mark Stover, Dean for the University Library. Please join me in welcoming this year's CSUN Honors Convocation platform. Also in attendance are members of our distinguished faculty and staff whose leadership, knowledge, and guidance have played an essential role in preparing the students we honor today. Will the faculty and staff please rise? And join me one more time in recognizing our outstanding faculty.
Now, I am pleased to introduce Dr. Diane Harrison, University President.
Good morning. Are you awake? Good morning. Thank you. On behalf of the university, I'm pleased to welcome you to California State University Northridge's 2016 Honors Convocation. This ceremony traditionally marks the start of CSUN's commencement celebrations, which begin this evening. Honors Convocation holds special significance because the students we honor this morning represent CSUN's best. Through your individual and collective achievements in the classroom and in service to the community, you have elevated CSUN's name and our reputation, and you embody the commitment to excellence that our faculty and staff work to instill in our students. It's been a personal privilege and a joy to me to meet many of you this past year. So thank you for your hard work and for allowing the faculty and staff at CSUN to cultivate your unique talents and gifts, which we are pleased to recognize and honor today. My colleagues at the university are proud to join with your families and friends this morning to honor all of you. And I hope today's ceremony is a memory that you will always cherish and keep you engaged with CSUN as you continue on your journey and pursue new horizons. It is now my great pleasure and privilege to introduce this morning's keynote speaker. Our speaker is a CSUN alumnus who also attended middle school and high school locally in the San Fernando Valley. As you will see, he is someone who has had a rich and varied professional career that has been driven by his passion for music and education and making a difference in the world. He is an example of what can be obtained when commitment and inner drive are matched with a CSUN education and degree. In this case, a Bachelor of Arts in Music and a California teaching credential. He is also the recipient of CSUN's two highest honors, a Distinguished Alumni Award in 2007 and an Honorary Doctor of Fine Arts in 2011 for his work as an outstanding educator, business executive, producer, and civic leader. Mr. James Burke chose to attend California State University Northridge because he wanted to be a music teacher. After he graduated in 1981, he took his music degree and his passion for music education to the Los Angeles Unified School District. At Carson High School, he reopened the music department and built it into one of the largest music programs in California. Later, with the highly diverse student body of Alexander Hamilton High School in West LA, Mr. Burke reopened Hamilton's music and performing arts, turned it into the acclaimed Hamilton Academy of Music and Performing Arts, the largest comprehensive performing arts magnet of its kind in the Western United States and one of the largest music programs in California. Following his success there in 1990, he was appointed the principal of the Alexander Hamilton High School's complex, becoming the youngest principal in the history of the LAUSD and its 725 schools. Under his leadership, Hamilton's funding base and attendance improved dramatically, and test scores jumped more than 100%. After 11 years at Hamilton in 2002, Mr. Burke began a new phase of his career when he was recruited as the founding executive director of the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences Foundation, the foundation arm of the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences, home of the Grammy Awards. While there, he created a nonprofit entertainment production company that produced live concerts, festivals, television programs, and records, and instituted an array of national programming that was committed to meeting the foundation's charge of cultivating the understanding, appreciation, and advancement of the contribution of recorded music to American culture. Following his work at the Grammy Foundation, Mr. Burke moved into the private sector, successfully serving as CEO of Hard Rock Cafe International, where he expanded the company's reach to 29 countries and simultaneously served as head of the Hard Rock Foundation. Also, Fairfield Communities, a vacation and resort company, and Gryphon Colleges Corporation. From 2006 until last year, Mr. Burke served as CEO of Participant Media, a global entertainment company founded in 2004 that focused on socially relevant films, television, publishing, and digital media, with the goal of drawing attention to and encouraging action on diverse social issues such as global warming, nutrition, education, immigration, mental health, business, civil liberties, and international conflict. At Participant Media, he was able to successfully combine his passion, skills, and experiences as an educator, business leader, and entertainment executive. When he started, he was employee number 17. He led the company's growth to over 250 employees and expanded its reach into new media and multi-platforms, including a Spanish-language film label, the television network, Pivot, and Participants Media platform. Some of the films released during his tenure include critically acclaimed films like The Kite Runner, The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel, Waiting for Superman, The Help, Lincoln, Bridge of Spies, and he named me Malala. I am pleased to tell you that Mr. Burke is also active and engaged at CSUN and in the community. He is a voting member of the Grammys, the Oscars, and the Emmys. In 2014, he was honored at the 13th annual Chrysalis Butterfly Ball for Participant Media's philanthropic work and community involvement. In addition to his bachelor's and his honorary degree, doctoral degree, and his teaching credential from CSUN, he has studied at UCLA and has received a master's in public administration and professional administrative services credential from California Lutheran University. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Dr. Jim Burke.
Thank you, President Harrison. And to the Cal State University Northridge, class of 2016, congratulations on your graduation. That's why we're all here today. Today is a special day. It's your day, and all of us on stage and in the audience have the privilege to formally recognize the honors that you've earned and all that you have achieved. Today is also the ceremonial end of one phase of your life and the beginning of the next. Soon, you will be liberated to join the workforce. Now, the bad news is that historical career pathways have been completely disrupted, and there are no longer clearly defined roadmaps for what it takes to be successful, or even what success means. However, the really good news is that historical career pathways have been completely disrupted, and there are no longer clearly defined roadmaps for what it takes to be successful. This means you are free of all of the confinements that defined the way most people pursued a career before, and you are perfectly positioned to take maximum advantage of this disruption because you're just starting out. You can take risks, be aggressive, innovate to succeed, and rebound quickly when you fail. And you will fail, but that's okay. The start of your career is when you have the least to lose and the most to learn. It's also when you figure out what really motivates you, the nature of your operating ethics, and your own personal definition of success. Now, to figure this out, you've got to be clear about what matters most to you. Is it about doing work which you have a passion, or having financial security and material wealth? Is it about leaving a legacy, or creating a loving family? Is it about recognition, building something of your own, or just winning? Is it finding a work-life balance, or helping others and changing the world for the better? It's unlikely it's just one of these things, and instead a unique combination rooted in your own personal life experience, your education, and your dreams for the future. Now, figuring this out isn't simple, because the mind is not always in alignment with the heart. This is something I discovered around your age. What I thought was important in my life was not the same as what I felt. My career awakening occurred early in college, and pretty much all of my operating and leadership ethics crystallized in my first job. As you heard, like many of you, I grew up in the Valley. I went to Birmingham High School down the street, where I was a major band geek. And after high school, I went to UCLA because I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. Now, lawyers make good money. They have job security. And these are both qualities in a profession I assumed were important to my parents. While I was enjoying my freshman year, I found that if I had any spare time, I would rush from Westwood just down the street to Kennedy High School, where I would volunteer as the assistant marching band director. I loved working with students and realized I just couldn't pursue a career in law. I had to become a music teacher. Now, once I made that decision, I wanted to get the best training possible, so I needed to go to one of the best music and education schools in the country. So goodbye, Bruins, and hello, Matadors. When I told my dad about my plans, I vividly remember him asking, "Will this work make you happy?" And I told him teaching is a high unlike anything I'd ever experienced before. And without hesitation, he said, "Do it and never look back." Now, what made that interesting to me is he went on to tell me for the first time that he never really loved his work and wondered what might have been if he hadn't taken the more traditional and sensible path. Knowing that he had spent his entire life working without enjoyment in order to provide financial stability for his family had an indelible effect on me. I resolved at that moment to only pursue jobs in which I couldn't wait to go to work, and my first job was that way. As soon as I graduated, I became the music teacher at Carson High School in South LA, and here I am, a 21-year-old, white, middle-class Valley kid whose life experience was without serious challenges, heading off to be the new band director of a music program that had been closed down after the band director quit, the band room ransacked, and all the music instruments stolen. In addition, I would be teaching students from a socioeconomic and ethnic backgrounds of which I had little experience. I couldn't have been more naive about the realities of the job. But looking back, this wasn't a bad thing, as it allowed me to approach my work boldly and take risks without even realizing I was doing so at the time. My vast inexperience was offset by confidence in my music and teaching skills and a passion bordering on obsession for the work. I can tell you from experience that deeply caring about what you do excuses early career blunders. I learned this from the students. They can quickly decipher if a teacher's interest in them is authentic. If it is, they forgive mistakes. If it isn't, they put up barriers. And even if it negatively affects them, they will stop you from being successful. It's no different than the people you will be working with and for. If you don't believe in what you are doing, then neither will the people around you. Yes, you can fake it for a short while, but that's not sustainable. So do work that allows you not to act with passion, but to be passionate. Now, as teachers go, my passion manifested itself strongly, as I was a pretty demanding teacher. I did not care that in a few years the students built that program into one of the largest and most celebrated in California. We could do better, win more competitions, earn more scholarships, and every student had to get the grades to get into college. So I set very high standards with little regard to the challenges my students were facing. And when they didn't give it their best shot, I made them run laps, practice more, complete additional homework. I was hard. So much so that one year I'd had enough of always being the bad guy and decided no more. If students were late, absent, not focused, or not finished at the end of practice, no worries. No calls to the parents. No punishment. I'd be the cool teacher for a change. But after a couple of weeks, the student leaders asked for a meeting after practice. They demanded to know what was wrong. I said nothing. It was the other way around, that I'd pushed them too hard, and it wasn't fair to them. And they explained to me at length and in a very respectful way how they felt, which summarized was something along the lines of, Mr. Burke, we like you, but you really aren't that smart. You know, they explained that pushing them to do better is how they knew I really believed in them. And they hated how often people would lower expectations because of where they live or what they look like. That self-awareness hit me like a ton of bricks. I learned that people don't want to just get by. They want to excel. And for that to happen, you have to push beyond normal expectations, even when it's uncomfortable for you. The relentless pursuit of excellence is a defining characteristic of success and leads to advancement. However, this attribute is greatly diminished if it isn't practiced with empathy. Now, at Carson, I had a student named Fao, whose large family moved to the U.S. a few years earlier from Samoa. Despite the fact that he had no formal training, he was a natural musician, and if he applied himself, he could have earned a full scholarship to college. Fao was the nicest kid you would ever meet. He was a gentle giant, literally and physically. He was also chronically late, literally and physically. The way I saw it, he was lazy, and that didn't fly with me. So I did what I assumed would have been done to me. I called his parents, and I explained how disappointed I was in his behavior. And after I finished, the only words they said were, "Thank you for calling, we're very sorry, it will not happen again." Well, I was feeling very proud of the way I handled the situation, and the next morning, Fao came up to me, apologized, and promised to do better. But I noticed as he was turning away, he had a bruise on his arm and another on his face. Later that day, I learned from other students that in his culture, the teacher is a highly respected person, and Fao had brought disrespect to his family by having caused a teacher to call them. As a result, there were consequences, largely caused by my ignorance about his culture and family dynamics. This taught me to first seek to understand and then be sensitive to the social, economic, racial, and cultural influences of the people I worked with. Fortunately for you, you are far more evolved in this area than I was at your age, because Los Angeles and Cal State University Northridge are now such wonderfully diverse environments. You already understand that the world is not monochromatic, and you can appreciate all the benefits of working in an environment which promotes diversity and fosters a culture of empathy. And this is a good thing. It's a competitive advantage for you because there's a direct link between job satisfaction and working in an inclusive atmosphere. Now, ultimately, teaching gave me that extraordinary sense of satisfaction. I felt like I was connected to people in a meaningful way, and I learned that life is more fulfilling when you incorporate public service into your professional and personal life. This doesn't mean you have to become a teacher or work in a nonprofit. But working for the social good should be part of what you do. Every job has or can have ways to integrate social impact into your work. If you don't, you won't be able to make a difference. Find a way and create them. Now, the one thing I did not do in my first job is think about what I needed to do to get my next job. I just focused all my energy into my work, and opportunities organically availed themselves that I could not have manufactured no matter how much I tried to plot and plan my career. When you're passionate about your work, you're happy. And when you're happy, you're optimistic. And your mind frees you to innovate and create. And this will affect the people around you, including those who will propel your career forward. As President Harrison so kindly mentioned, my career path has been unique, which is a kind word for really odd and strange. I've been a teacher, a school administrator, a music executive, and over the past 24 years, CEO of restaurant, hotel, education, and entertainment companies. Now, working across several industries was somewhat uncommon for my time, but it's different now. Many of you are more likely to span several types of work because your priorities are different than my generation, and the world is changing much more quickly. Generational change is, well, it's no longer generational. Remember a parent or grandparent talking about what they didn't have growing up, and at some point they'd say, "In my day," and you would look at them and think how weird it must have been to grow up without all those things and that they were kind of old. Now, think about how old you were just 10 years ago, a little over 10 years in 2004. Most of you were in your teens. Now, think of the things that you didn't have in your day because they hadn't even been invented yet. GPS, YouTube, Google Maps, podcasts didn't happen until 2005. Blu-ray, Twitter, the first stadium seating in movie theaters wasn't until 2006. The first Kindle and iPhones hit the market in 2007. Kickstarter and Android phones didn't appear until 2008. Uber didn't exist 7 years ago. It launched in 2009. Snapchat is only 4 years old. So I bet anyone in this audience who's in their early teens or younger is thinking, wow, the graduating class of 2016 is really old. So, welcome to the new normal. Global warming isn't the only thing disrupting established patterns. Technological advances now have a multiplier effect on the speed of innovation. The result is a workforce that is in a constant state of flux, and you are the first generation that has to deal with this new normal. Now, over the past decade, I experienced this firsthand in the film business, where virtually every aspect of the industry underwent some form of disruption. Many who resisted suffered, but those who saw disruption as an opportunity to innovate prospered. During this time, Participant Media partnered on some over 60 feature films, and we had the honor of working with Steven Spielberg on several movies, including Lincoln and last year's Bridge of Spies. When Bridge of Spies was filming, I had a chance to visit the set, and during a break, Stephen was talking about the speed of technological advances in the viewing of films and other media. He was excited about how those changes would allow him to expand, how he could tell stories. I was struck by how one of the greatest filmmakers of all time, who had no reason to change the way he approached his work, was so open to evolving the ways he creates his art. He went on to predict that in 10 years, the way we will make and consume media won't just be incrementally better than today, it will be in ways that have not even been invented yet. And I think this worldview is dead on. Old paradigms of one job for long periods, one profession for your entire career, set pathways for everyone to follow or make money or disappearing, and being replaced with a dynamic work environment. You can no longer think about incremental changes to the current way we do business. Changes now occur at a hyper rate, and the products, companies, and jobs are evolving, disappearing, and being replaced with new ones at an unprecedented speed. This is why you have to approach your career with flexibility and be willing to embrace constant change. And I know this can feel daunting at times, but it's also empowering and it's liberating. Not knowing what's next means that you have endless opportunities and nothing is set in stone. This means that it's now easier to pursue a career path tailored to your own unique definition of success. So seek out work that allows you to enjoy every step of the journey, so that every job you have is the best job you've ever had. Remember, going there is as much fun as getting there. So for those of you who think you know exactly what you're going to do for the rest of your life sitting in these chairs today, guess what? Most likely you won't be doing it. So buckle your seatbelt, throw your hands in the air, and enjoy the roller coaster ride. And for those of you who don't know yet, don't panic. You don't need to have it all worked out today. Either way, your professional life will progress nicely if you do something that you are willing to dedicate yourself to completely. It doesn't really matter what the job is, just approach whatever you do with passion. Opportunities that you never thought possible will organically reveal themselves. When I graduated, I looked at my studies at Cal State Northridge as a means to an end. But over the years, I gained an appreciation for this school because my time here was much more than just taking classes to earn a degree. Yes, CSUN gave you the academic foundation and confidence to move forward professionally, but your time here will be remembered as so much more. Think about the freedom that you enjoyed, certain professors that changed you, the friendships you formed, and the personal growth that you experienced. Over time, this is what you will come to appreciate and remember with fondness. My last observation is about the champions in your life. You are the most distinguished graduates of this university and have reached a milestone in academic achievement. You have a right and should be very proud of yourselves. But no matter how pleased you are with yourselves for reaching this academic high point, there are people who are even more proud. They are the ones who loved, supported, and sacrificed you. Class of 2016, look around at the moms, dads, brothers, sisters, grandparents, and friends who are all here today to celebrate your success. Take a moment to really tell them how much they mean to you. And don't be shy, because no matter how much you say, when you look back, it will never feel like it was enough. I promise you, their happiness is what you will remember most about today. Class of 2016, congratulations again on your success at Cal State University Northridge and on your graduation with honors. Best wishes for a career that matters, a life of purpose, and in making the world a better place to live. Thank you.
Jim, thank you so much for those inspiring words. I hope that we can get a copy of that and post it. What a great message for all of us. On behalf of the university, I want to offer you this small token of our appreciation for your taking time to come with us today and inspire us. Thank you. Very nice.
Testing 1, 2, okay. We assemble annually to honor CSUN's heritage of excellence as reflected through the accomplishments of our students. Of the approximate 11,000 students graduating this year, about 2,000 students received an invitation to this special honors convocation in recognition of their superior scholastic and personal achievement. Of these, 6 students are distinguished further by earning special awards. This morning, we will be recognizing 1 outstanding graduate student, 4 outstanding graduating seniors, and the Wolfson Scholar. These awards have been sponsored through the CSUN Foundation, the Alumni Association, and private donations. Each recipient will receive a cash award of $1,000.
The outstanding graduate student will now be recognized. This award is presented to a graduate student who has demonstrated academic excellence and produced a high-quality thesis project. This year's Outstanding Graduate Award, sponsored by the Nathan O. Friedman Memorial Fund, is presented to Jake Reschke. When Jake Reschke was in high school, He didn't even like math. The first-generation college student from the Northeast San Fernando Valley community of Sunland, Tehunga, now a graduate student at California State University, Northridge, was a self-described decent student, but unfocused. This month, Reschke is graduating with a master's degree in mathematics and is being recognized today as this year's Nathan O. Friedman Outstanding Graduate Student, the highest honor presented to a CSUN graduate student in recognition of their distinguished and exemplary scholarship. To qualify for the honor, candidates must maintain a minimum grade point average of 3.5. Reschke has earned a 4.0 GPA while pursuing his master's degree, and he humbly credits his remarkable achievement to the support and guidance he has received from the CSUN faculty. Reschke also graduated with his bachelor's degree in physics from CSUN in 2014. He initially enrolled at CSUN as an undergrad in 2009, majoring in geological sciences at the suggestion of a family friend. Jake said, "Nobody in my family had attended college, and my dad's friend was a geologist with a state job that looked pretty comfortable. I figured a geology major didn't have to do much math." Back in high school, he found math dry and pointless. He said his goal was to avoid it. However, as a college student in 2011, he changed his major to physics with a minor in mathematics. Physics made sense to me. It came very naturally. During his senior year at CSUN, Reschke enrolled in the Department of Mathematics in a course taught by Professor David Klein in general relativity. He credits Klein with helping to change his career path. Professor Klein's course was the first experience I had in applying pure mathematics to physical problems. The clarity that the pure mathematical approach afforded to the study of gravity convinced me to change directions and study mathematics rather than physics in graduate school. My intention when I started college was just to get a degree and go to work, but I realized I wanted to do research, and it was possible to make that a career. During his graduate studies, Reschke has worked as a teaching assistant in the Department of Mathematics, as a physics tutor in the Department of Physics and Astronomy, and was also awarded a summer research grant to work with physics professor Anna Karavid. He is president of One Struggle, a student club focused on the science of climate change and the political and economic forces around that issue. He also co-authored a paper with Klein in 2015 that was published in the Journal of Mathematical Physics. As a result of his hard work, Reschke has been accepted into a doctoral program in mathematics at the University of California, Davis. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, Jake Reschke.
The Outstanding Graduating Senior Awards are presented to students who have demonstrated academic excellence, made significant contributions to the campus and community, and have demonstrated exceptional achievements or overcome extraordinary life circumstances. Before announcing this year's Outstanding Graduating Seniors, let us acknowledge the other students nominated for this award. Finalists, please stand as I read your name. Ina Gore, Recreation, Hospitality, and Tourism Management. Paulin Manassian, Political Science. Jamie Perez, journalism. And finally, Jonathan Watts, public health promotion. Please join me in applauding the accomplishments of these finalists for their outstanding graduating senior award.
The first Outstanding Graduating Senior Award is sponsored by the CSUN Foundation. It is presented to Devin Coombs. Devin Coombs, 27, of Woodland Hills, grew up in poverty. He never knew his father, and his mother died when he was 15. He has been on his own since he was 18. At age 19, he launched his own recording label, Antipodes Records, recording music and creating marketing campaigns for local talent. A shifting business market and the oncoming recession hit him hard, forcing him to liquidate his company in 2007. He lived in his car for more than a year to pay off his debts. Knowing education was the key to success, Coombs took classes at Pierce College and eventually transferred to CSUN. While at CSUN, Coombs was active in the Business Honors Association and Leaders in Alliance, a group of student leaders in the David Nazarian College of Business and Economics, and also served on a search committee and the Business Honors Advisory Committee for the college. He has made more than 100 educational YouTube videos to assist lower division business students and created a mentoring program between the CSUN Business Honors students and students at Granada Hills Charter High School. He also runs a small business, consulting and tutoring students on the side. Devin said, "The only way to overcome obstacles is through people helping you, giving you assistance and mentoring you. Giving back is such a huge part of my life. If I can reach out to anyone the way I was reached out to and encouraged, then I'm going to do that. It gives me the energy to do what I do." Coombs has been hired as an auditor by the international professional services firm Deloitte. He has plans to get married next year. In the meantime, he's spending his summer preparing for the Certified Public Accountant CPA exam. Devin will be graduating this spring with a 3.77 GPA. Ladies and gentlemen, one more huge round of applause for Devin Coombs.
The next Outstanding Graduating Senior Award, also sponsored by the CSUN Foundation, is presented to Joshua Kabushani. CSUN philosophy major Joshua Kabushani, 24, said he believes his success cannot be measured merely by a grade point average, but by a well-rounded education from his involvement in the campus community, time studying abroad, volunteer work, and the relationships he has forged during his time at Cal State Northridge. Growing up in the San Fernando Valley, Kabushani and his mother moved several times, making it difficult to nurture friendships and get involved. When he arrived at CSUN's freshman orientation and sat through a take performance, a stage performance of skits about issues that affect students, Kabushani vowed to give back. He started by becoming a new student orientation leader, and then he became a Take cast member, a program he credits as giving him his voice. He also kept busy as a unified We Serve volunteer, a peer instructor as a supplemental instruction lead for English, and a senator with Associated Students. Off campus at age 20, Kabushani raised money and traveled to Nepal to volunteer at an orphanage. Donations provided mosquito nets, sheets, and private education tuition to the children. Kabushani said he thought he was going to save the world, but he soon realized the money meant far less than the time he spent with the kids in Nepal. His list of accolades, accomplishments, internships, and volunteer roles are seemingly endless. Through all this activity at CSUN and abroad, Kabushani battled depression and an eating disorder, which resulted in hospital stays and a missed semester. Josh said, "I've had a lot of opportunities to come back and say, this is too much, and drop out of CSUN. Instead, he found his passion in philosophy and dove deep into the campus community that he credits as the reason for his success." After graduation, Kabushani endeavors to become a writer and educator. Joshua explains that education shouldn't solely be about finding the answers or arriving to the sought conclusions, but rather be about developing the capacity to see the entirety of the problem, to learn how to think rather than what to think, to sharpen the lens through which one views the world in order to propose innovative, holistic solutions to the inequities of today's world. Joshua, ever humble, will be graduating with a 3.9 GPA this spring. Success indeed. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, Joshua Kabushani.
The next Outstanding Graduating Senior Award, sponsored by the Karen, Leon, and Rita Goldstein Salter Memorial Fund, is presented to Stephanie Martinez. Stephanie Martinez describes herself as a Chicana, an activist, a student, and a fighter. One of those distinctions she soon will lose. Student will be replaced on her personal ledger by college graduate. Growing up in Huntington Park, Stephanie recalled how the predominantly Latino community enveloped her and gave her many warm and happy memories as a child. Looking around at the largely immigrant community, she found her calling. The only child of Guadalupe and Fernando Martinez, who emigrated from Mexico themselves, Martinez saw that if she really wanted to make a difference in her home community and others like it, she would have to get an education. She learned about the Department of Chicano Studies at CSUN and read books by department co-founder Rudy Acuna, which inspired her to attend the university. While working on her double major in political science and Chicano studies, Martinez also did volunteer work, including as an intern at Immigration Services of Santa Rosa, located in the city of San Fernando, where she assisted in the preparation of deferred action for childhood arrivals cases and employment authorization documents. Through the student organization MECHA, Movimiento Estudiantil Chicano de Aztlán, she helped organize 2 trips to Tijuana, Mexico, to provide humanitarian aid to displaced deportees residing alongside the U.S.-Mexico border. In addition, she provided leadership to the Raza Youth Conference, helping promote higher education to students of color from underserved communities. She was an academic mentor during CSUN's Educational Opportunity EOP summer transitional programs. Martinez also helped lead caravans to Tijuana to help people who were recently deported. After graduation, Martinez, 22, plans to take a year to work for the Coalition of Humane Immigrants' Rights of Los Angeles, a nonprofit organization that caters to the undocumented community in Los Angeles. She also intends to intern at a law firm before beginning law school in fall 2017. But first, she plans to participate in this honors convocation ceremony and 2 additional commencement ceremonies over the next few days, finding at each event her inspiration to graduate from college, her parents. Ladies and gentlemen, Stephanie Martinez.
The final student recognized, also sponsored by the Karen Leon and Rita Goldstein-Salter Memorial Fund, is presented to Laura Saldiriaga. On June 21st, 2005, Laura's life changed forever. Traveling in her cousin's car to pick up her own little sister, she was riding in a seat with a faulty seatbelt buckle. As they pulled back into their neighborhood, another car slammed into them, and Laura was ejected through the windshield. She was rushed to the hospital where doctors performed a number of tests before taking her into surgery. That day, they discovered tumors around Laura's lungs, heart, and in her neck. She had Hodgkin's lymphoma. Just 21 years old, Laura had recently immigrated from her native Colombia to Orlando, Florida, with her family. The move had interrupted her college engineering studies as she was scheduled to start classes at Valencia College in Orlando. Recovering from injuries and thrown into cancer treatment, Laura had to put her engineering dreams on hold once again. Later, while in remission and after struggling to balance full-time work with getting the engineering classes she needed at night at the community college, Laura decided to move to Los Angeles on her own to pursue better college opportunities. Living in the San Fernando Valley and working for the Bank of America during the day, she chose Cal State University Northridge and the wide array of engineering courses that were offered at night. She enrolled in 2012, determined to finish her degree. Laura's senior year featured one of the highlights of her CSUN career, working on a senior design project, Her team of engineering classmates created a home healthcare system to help families with medical needs, such as checking temperature, oxygen, and glucose levels. NASA also selected Laura, based on her qualifications and strong GPA, to work in its academic part-time employee program at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL. After graduation, her JPL supervisors planned to keep her on as a clean room compliance engineer. Throughout her journey, 32-year-old Laura has remained incredibly positive. As Laura said, "If I had the opportunity to share my story with someone, I will, because you never know who will hear it and need the encouragement. Cancer is not the end of your life." Congratulations, Laura. Ladies and gentlemen, Laura Saldiriaga.
The final award presented this morning will be to the university's Wolfson Scholar, which is the highest academic award bestowed upon an undergraduate at CSUN. The Wolfson Scholar Award is presented each year in memory of the university's first vice president, Dr. Leo Wolfson, and given to the senior selected as the most outstanding scholar in the graduating class. Not only must the student have an exceptional academic record, but they must have made significant contributions to California State University Northridge or to the community through co-curricular and extracurricular activities. Before announcing this year's Wolfson Scholar, I want to recognize the other finalists for the award. These students are outstanding scholars who have contributed extensively to the communities in which they live, work, and study. Will each finalist, if present, please stand when I read your name? From the Mike Kerb College of Arts, Media, and Communication, Nicole Dixon. From the David Nazarian College of Business and Economics, Alec Ledoux. From the College of Engineering and Computer Science and College of Science and Mathematics, Jonathan Costello. From the College of Health and Human Development, Madeline Handy. And from the College of Social and Behavioral Sciences, Ariel Stone. Please join me in recognizing the accomplishments of these Wolfson Scholar finalists.
This year, the recipient of the university's Wolfson Scholar Award is Wendy Palatino. Wendy Palatino has been working toward a more equitable world for the deaf community since she was a teenager. She is now a 24-year-old student double majoring in linguistics and deaf studies. She started to learn sign language at the age of 12 so that she could communicate with a child whom she babysat. That interest grew, and Palatino took a class in American Sign Language, after which point she began interpreting at her church and tutoring hearing adults how to sign. After earning an associate's degree in social sciences and foreign languages at American River College in Sacramento, Palatino said she enrolled at CSUN because of the outstanding reputation of the Department of Linguistics as well as the Department of Deaf Studies, one of the oldest and most respected departments in the nation. Since arriving to CSUN, she has continued to volunteer as an interpreter in the community and to work almost full-time as a teaching assistant at a local elementary school. In 2015, she was accepted as a student participant to the prestigious Visual Language and Visual Learning Student Network, a research network funded by the National Science Foundation and run by Gallaudet University, another foremost university for deaf studies in the country. Palatino said she plans to pursue a master's degree in deaf education at CSUN and eventually pursue a doctorate at Gallaudet University. As Wendy has stated, I am exceedingly grateful to my professors at CSUN for giving me the knowledge and the tools I needed to come this far. Before arriving at CSUN, I was merely interested in the intersection of my two majors, and now I am thrilled to actively contribute to my chosen career field. Wendy will be graduating with a cumulative GPA of a 3.97. Once more, may I present to you Wendy Palatino.
All of the students being honored today represent the finest members of this year's graduating class. They are recognized for their scholastic and/or personal achievement. Students distinguished for scholastic achievement are graduate students with a cumulative grade point average of 3.885 or better, and graduating seniors with a cumulative grade point average of 3.5 or better. Students recognized for their personal achievement have maintained at least a 3.0 cumulative grade point average while demonstrating excellence of an artistic, creative, or athletic nature, or have displayed outstanding leadership skills and/or completed extensive community service. We'll now read the names of the honorees. The ceremony marshals and staff will bring our students up to the stage to receive congratulations and the University Honors Convocation Medallion by the members of the platform. We ask that each student return to their seats after receiving the medallion and remain seated until all recipients have been honored.
Christine Diwa. Josiah Devo. Justin Fleming. Alec Ledoux. Jude E.J. Debloth Reyes. Delia Campos. Caitlin Heskett. Alexis Rivas. Ashley Slater. Jennifer Barraza. Is it Aylan? Thomas Pylan. Vanessa Porter. Catherine Kuo. Cindy Flores. Edith Winterhalter. Hector Ramirez Jr. Sanjita Dobe. Maria Pappas. Malik Almaratia.
Emily Regal. Allison Lee Haggerty. Megan Tiny. Susan Watkins. Amanda Hakere. Haraki, I'm sorry, Amanda Haraki. Jennifer Martinez. Michelle Zamora. Asani Ovashalon. Catherine Hoppers. Liliana Nasibaragan. Melanie Sandoval. Jennifer Gold. Kayla Dekos. Navard Samanian. Yudi Mansfield. Angela Zamkochin. Austin Powell. Violet Sarankajian. Stevie Gonzalez. Jessica Romo. Danita Hamsoni. Harish Amar. Aaron Wagerman. Mari Artunian. Mark Kaplan. Emma Rios, excuse me. Maria Camille Biancadino. Stacy Cortez. Tara Border. Stacy Jones. Karen Pastrano.
Andrea Mendez. John Darian. David Ortiz.
Jose Ruben Gonzalez.
Jose Ruben Gonzalez.
Yair Arbelli.
Yer Arbelli.
Paul Jessen.
Paul Jessen.
Lisa Tent.
Lisa Ann Tent.
Steve Giraldi.
Steve Girardi.
Haley Vietti.
Haley Vietti.
Jesus Puentes.
Jesus Puentes.
Brian Serrano.
Brian Serrano.
Kalia Barco.
Kalia Barco.
Unron Young.
Kim Rong Jung.
Asia Campbell.
Asia Campbell.
Maziar
Maziar Bekraden.
Ben Shapiro.
Ben Shapiro.
Yeruhani Marquesian.
Yaranui Matesian.
Elroma David.
Elroma David. James Chavez.
Jonathan Watts.
Jonathan Watts.
Ariel Bakshanda. Let's see. Nicole Cosales. Catherine Earl. Cheers Jan. Tiana Murphy. Utsaf Podell. Patil Janetsian. Estella Esquivian. Stephanie Mendez. Daniela Yerumian. Ilana Yaffa. Shireen Fazal. Stephanie Artiga. Anna Avilanque. Robert Kosagian. Nagin Sagani. Allison Joyce De Vera. Kyle Chen. Ani Yatkarnian. Natalia Cherry. Maureen Odyebulen. Zorik Bagumian. Lauren Varon. Ashley Laporte. Ian Nelson. Taylor Pascal. Stacy Vertubelborn. Aviva Bien. Elizabeth Bolton. Nicole Chaparro. Mia Goros. Lisa Marie Ornelas. Natalie Arasta. Alexander Radin. Courtney Berenson Lotane.
Jessica Bandarizaude.
Ava Bustamante.
Eva Bustamante. Brianda Romero.
Mary Gonlub.
Mary Gongub.
Vanessa Gary.
I have to hold up. Vanessa Ugari.
Cynthia Espinoza.
Cynthia Espinoza. Can you say your name? Edward Nepomuceno.
Delbert Stewart.
Delbert Stewart.
Maribeth Bacaro.
Maribeth Baccaro.
Annie Park.
Ann Park.
Katria Tarver.
Katera Asil Tarverdian. Katerina Skiani. Rosalie Celestial. Carolina Rios Ochoa. Cindy Ramirez. Spanish, you don't have to do too much. Katerina Dallin. Michelle Holloway. Let's say your name, honey. Okay. Ada Patience Wankowo. Okay. Adu Patience Wankowo. Andrea or Andrea? Andrea Mercado. Catherine Jimenez. Matthew Decker. John Villalobos. Jonathan Cardona. Talene Agazarian. Stevie Post. Matthew Levine. Jorgelina Bastias. I got it. Steve Leung.
Savako Hannes Babruni.
Okay, Selena Agayan?
Selena Agayan.
Okay, Sheslow.
Eric Sheslow. Paloma Jacinto.
Okay.
Linda Vialta. Maria Garcia. Samal Berry.
Suarez.
Ray Suarez. Leslie Chang.
Okay, you got that one.
Nicole Thompson.
Sarah Malcolm.
Sarah Malcolm.
Marjorie Lee.
Marjorie Lee.
Okay. Gilbert Galindo.
Gilbert Galindo.
Okay, Gray.
Justin Gray.
Borgard. Marianne Borgard. Yes. Okay.
Marianne Borgard.
Sean Sally.
Sean Sally.
Okay. Cuccinello.
Sammy Cuccinello.
Okay. Tafoya.
Cynthia Tafoya.
Okay. Maher Babikian.
Maher Babikian.
Delanian.
Anna Delanian.
Okay. And Nguyen.
Ann Nguyen.
Okay. Marazava. Hannah.
Hannah Marazava.
Okay. Natalie Barrios.
Natalie Barrios.
Bridget Fitzsimmons.
Bridget Fitzsimmons.
Nathaniel Sanchez.
Nathaniel Sanchez. Mirzat Blum.
Janelyn Sharp.
Janelyn Sharp.
Ariana Poche. Ariana Poche.
Ariana Poche. Bianca Watkin.
Valentina Troop.
Valentina Troop.
Okay,
Tansy Aguilar.
Yvonne Ye.
Yvonne Ye. Ishan Yusu. Yvonne Ye, I'm so sorry.
Storniolo. Don't say sorry.
Anthony Storniolo.
Okay, Christina Andere.
Cynthia Andere.
Divya Yoshi.
Divya Yoshi.
Okay, Nunn.
Nicole
Nicole Nunn.
Nunn.
Emily Norman.
Emily Norman.
Okay,
Caitlin Poyer.
Shannon McCarty.
Shannon McCarty.
Shiva Gardashian.
Shiva Kardashian.
Okay, Carlson. Linnea. Yeah.
Linnea Carlson.
Okay,
Ryan Lim.
Perez left.
Zachary Perez.
Okay, Cohen.
Jordan Cohen.
Okay, Victor Mendez.
Victor Mendez.
Arno Bazikian.
Arno Bazikian.
Okay, say your last name, honey. Jaladian.
George Jaladian.
Levon Gavorgian. Okay, I'll do it.
Okay.
Levon Gavorgian.
Alan Noller.
Alan Noller.
Michael Paul Volpe.
Michael Paul Volpe.
Yasmin Mosca.
Yasmin Mosca.
Christina Joffrey.
Dawn Brawley.
Emily Andrade.
Janessa Reyes.
Janessa Reyes.
Juvel Mar Ingel. Lisa Diane Barid Haufrit. Elizabeth Beltran. Shannon Cotton. Louise Coe. Petros Balkalyan. Edward Rodesno. Ruth Mawed Dougal. Kingsley Anu. Matthew Stillinger. Myra Gonzalez. Michael Mora. Alejandro Malta. Haley Ryan Kramer. Erica Camacho. Diana Lopez. Marlene Valle Senor. Mingyet Lee. Stephen Morris. Marilyn Martinez. Vanessa Hernandez. Chelsea Hambus. Patricia Gutierrez. Could have been Patricia, those are the ones right there. Tracy Gilmore. Certain ones you don't have to worry about. Okay. Rachel Parsons Svensson. MD Rahaman. Alexander Makat. Sapir Mizrahi. Eamon Zokim. Maria Elena Thompson. Cynthia Martinson. Imelda Hernandez. Alfred Weeks III. Lihia Cordero. Corey Bjorseth. Janet Tarbush. Jeanette Tarbush. Sandy Bayan. Sarah Salim. Saima Ibrahim. Pedram Parto. Harut Yedalian. Diana Yedalian. Dina Rabati.
Don't say your name, honey. Oh, that's his Abdulaziz Al-Duwek.
Abdul Laziz Al-Dwek. Marina Naklach. Rami Swace. Poirier. Dylan Poirier. Okay, Bogos Canyon. Karine Bogos Canyon. Lynette Tina Novshadian. Kamarzarian. Evelyn Kamarzarian. Gadimian? Yes. Ibina Gaidemian. Brana Ratner Stauber. Sarah Ramanian. Arpi Artunian. What's your name, honey? Muhammad Asani Nia?
Yeah, perfect. Asani Nia.
Muhammad Asani Nia. Jasmine Alastas. Rowan Jane Cervantes Odagno. Lisa Ogulian. Miles Kozlowski.
Marissa Leon. Ann Jackson. Michelle Nunez. Brian Takstan. Rosario Lopez Sampieri. Megan Manos. Brittany Leva. Sharmi Alam. Oscar Tepezado. Sofia Ramirez. Maria Carmen Contreras.
Okay, is it Brianna or Brianna?
Brianna Herrera.
Clenny? Okay, Clenny Webster.
Clenny Webster.
Okay, there you go.
David Sparks.
Okay, Acevedo, top line.
Tiffany Acevedo.
Okay.
Jenny Acevedo.
Okay, should say it for him.
Chichoke Nokewo.
Romero Garcia, okay.
Oma Romero Garcia.
Top line.
Mark Morales.
Badro, right?
Bridget Badro.
Cacao Boschek.
Anna Cacao Bochek.
Kayla Markov.
Kayla Markoff. Jessica Jones.
Hayes, okay.
Matthew Shea Hayes.
Macalino.
Dewaka Macalino.
Galavis.
Esmeralda Galavis.
Shahar El Malia.
Shahar El Malia.
Okay. Malhotra.
Nashika Malhotra.
Okay, top line.
Judith Kramer.
Okay. Vikia McCaney.
Vikia McCaney. Kimberly Wright. Renee Sarkisian.
Okay. Hemmert. Sarah Hemmert. Yep.
Sarah Hemmert.
Okay.
Louise Servin.
Okay.
Armin Farzaneh.
Geraldine Islas.
Geraldine Islas.
Okay.
Christian Vargas.
Okay.
Ariel and Santor. Ruth Rosa.
Yigal Fatirian.
Yigal Fatirian.
Natalie, what's your name? Oh, it is.
Natalie Cohen.
Okay, Jai Jang. Okay.
Jai Jang.
Okay,
Sabrina Lewis.
Okay, Horhan.
Shannon Horhan.
Ciara Elliott.
Ciara Elliott.
Okay, Rodriguez top line.
Anna Kathleen Rodriguez. Ashley Moreno.
Stokes
Sabrina Raven.
Okay,
Stokes Lawson.
Trudeau. Okay.
Natalie Trudeau.
Platon.
Anthony Platon.
Jessica
Udad.
Hyacinth de Cuba.
Hyacinth de Cuba.
Okay, Khabib. Oh, Kebab. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ashley Marie Kabab.
Joseph Porras.
Joseph Porras.
Mirs Kakanian. Tade. Okay.
Okay.
Tade Mirs Kakanian. Juliana Tonko. Jorge Minyoyan. Shante Shabazz. Paulin Minassian. Sarkis Himalayan. Saye Berir Benia. Sharzad Zand. Diana Perez. Yvette Nava. Kim Osborne. Vicente Barba. Adiola Suabe. Melkonian, right? Ellen Melkonian. Monique Gavorkian. Yvette Ibadan. Is it Tamara or Tamara? Tamara McCoy. Bar Farchi. We better hold up for a minute. Mariela Reyes, right? Okay. Carlos Santoyo, right? Okay. Anyway, Spanish ones, you don't have to, generally I know those. Sometimes I'll only tell you one, I'm sorry.
No, it's
Okay.
fine. It's fine. You're doing great. You're better than I am.
No. Mariela Reyes. Carlos Santoyo. Veronica Mercado. Veronica Armas. Veronica Navar. Roberto Barrera. Anna Gray. Adrian Pacheco. Annie Kacharian. Okay. Ripsame Kacharian. Alfred Gonzalez. Emily Canales. Ashley Castro. Isabel Ayala. Brian Hernandez. Lokik Batala. Jesus Moran Perez. Mariela Cibrian. Catherine Albrigo. Gavrilova. Larissa Gavrilova. Natalie McChristy.
Janet Reynoso.
Say your name.
Lulia Sinkovich. Yola Nakub Diab. Lara Martinez. Ryan James Jet Adams. Christine Jagali. Michaela Takenko. Laura Gutierrez. Mallory Jimenez. Griselda Isaac Flores. Chelsea Ferguson. Caitlin Hyder. Sarah Godse. Skylar Weiss. Savannah Ratskin. Faith Alvarado Fernandez. Jonathan Garcia. Asimba Leal. Kendall Sebastian. Susanna Aguilar. Vladimir Arutunian. Daisy Lightfoot. Lori Omasakian. Travis Wilson. Joan Aragones. Eric Cuevas. Jeannie Chen. Yasmin Woodruff. Jaleh Kapadia. Alyssa Woodbury. Bethany West. Honey Bianchi. Paul Martin Marmorstein. Stephanie Lute Karen. Casey Bernardin. Marina Popolowski. Sandesh Nagaraj. Richard McAuliffe. Joshua James Manlutak. Krisha de Guzman. Julian Cuevas.
Kevin Manley, we hold up. Ian, you can talk to him.
Kevin Manley.
Ian, what's your last name? You got it?
Ian Lesheminan.
Gusson.
Allison Guston. Ilyana Almanson. Shirin Farahani. Dalia Gomez. Zulema Reyes. Mernaz Sadat. Susan Chambers. Chelsea Turner. Sua Cha. Joreen Padua. Guadalupe Hernandez. Dranmin Bakchis. Dranmin Baxi. Shanaz Jalarian. Brianna Muller. Ana Lydia Jimenez Colin.
Rousey.
Lauren Rousey.
McCurchin.
Ani McCurchin,
Shamal Ali.
Samael Ali,
Linda Zucania.
Linda Zucania,
Digno Rivera Woodlam. Okay. Woolham.
Digna Rivera Woolen,
Veliz.
Jennifer Veliz,
Okay. Oyosa Igodan. Okay, got it.
Uyosa Igodan,
Daniela
Daniela
Di Matteo.
Di Matteo,
Razuleo.
Luisa Rosaleo,
Okay, Michelle Alcowater.
Michal Alcowater,
Eduard Mataroso.
Edward Mataroso,
Paola Capala.
Paola Capala,
Okay, Chuang.
Rocky Twang,
Okay, Cacho.
Fernando Cacho,
Okay, is it Salem? Salem Al-Harmi.
Salem Al-Harmi,
Rachel Gozarka.
Rachel Kozarka,
Anne Kachatarian.
Anna Kachatarian,
Okay, Mark Haradi. Okay, Olinka.
Olinka Markarati,
Okay, Siona. I think you got that.
Siona de Zakarian,
Alan Zargar.
Alan Zargar,
Okay, Turkey Abu Bunyaya. Abu Bunyaya.
Turki Abu Bunyaya,
Abdul Rahman Al-Harbi.
Abdul Rahman Al-Harabi,
Okay, Alma Kazim. Right.
Abdul Rahman Alma Zakarin,
Al-Faran. Hamad Al-Faran.
Hamad Al-Faran,
Jason Hensley.
Jason Hensley,
Roxana Sayazode. And then you have another name? Okay, just
Roxanne Sayakode,
that. Just that. Myra Hernandez.
Myra Hernandez,
Delgadillo.
Celia Delgadillo,
Okay. Adrian David Rios. Right.
Adrian David Rios,
Windy. Right.
Linda Wingdy,
Okay.
Elba Balarizeo,
Pelmont.
Kimberly Pelmont, Maria Vasquez,
Janelle DeLevin.
Janelle DeLevin Isma,
Benz. Okay.
Megan Benz,
Araz Kachikian.
Araz Kachikian,
Okay.
Hannah Gallagher,
Brianna Acevedo.
Brianna Acevedo,
Yeah. Talene Yahia.
Talene Yahian,
Odabashian.
Kelly Orabashian,
Okay. Navart Nanette Karapetian. Yes. Okay.
Navart Nanette Karapetian,
Serrano. Okay.
Melissa Serrano,
Okay. Stembridge.
Sarah Stembridge,
Okay. Is it Rosanna Geronimo?
Rosanna Geronimo,
Okay. Foreman.
Rachel Foreman,
Matsuno. Okay.
Kevin Matsuno,
Dinsmore. Okay.
Richard Dinsmore,
Akash Patel. Okay. Hold on.
Atash Patel,
Okay. Samuel Alexanian. Hold on though. Hold on. We're back up. Okay. Elena Mamorian. Yes. Okay. We're still. Okay.
Samuel Alexanian,
Helena Mamorian.
Helena Memorian,
Jacqueline Geese.
Jacqueline Geese,
Okay. Jordan Carolyn.
Carolyn Jordan,
Okay.
Heather Schultz,
Sadun Alapagi. Yes. Okay.
Salun Alopadi,
Not quite. Okay. Nashin Ahmed. Okay.
Nashin Ahmed,
Shigami. Okay.
Raymond Chagani,
Top line.
Lindsay Middleton,
Dong
Dong Tran,
Razavi. Yes. Masood Razavi.
Masood Razavi,
Babayan.
Edmund Babayan,
Nava Sanchez. Okay.
Alexander Nava Sanchez,
Jomel Camilleri.
Jomel Camilleri,
Yuko Kato Lee.
Yuka Kato Lee,
Diane Horton.
Diane Horton, Mary McFarland,
Okay. Gayan Sardag.
Gayan Sardayan,
Okay. Alexanian.
Ruzana Alexarian,
Hasmik Hosepian.
Hasmik Hosepian,
Avital Elkayan. Okay.
Antal Elakanyan,
Jacqueline Vargas.
Jacqueline Vargas,
Santian.
Alberto Santillan,
Castle. Okay.
Sandra Castle,
Okay. Selena Garubian.
Selena Garibian.
Okay, Tabrek Cecil? Oh, Tabrek.
Tabrek Cecil.
Landis, right? Yeah.
Landis Ramirez. Jessica Ludwig.
Okay, say your name for the money.
Abdulaziz Ali Khair. Sora Lee. Jules Kessler.
Marin.
Brenda Marin. Vanessa Rivera. Sinead Park.
Akila Hegde. Krishna Murti Katyan Ramamurthy. Yave Morjan. Daniel Danis. Chris Wilson. Daniel Shin. Bethany Shapansky. Rishtuni? Marine Reshtuni. Adrian Kinsella. Andrew Pitayutawan. Sharon Lim. Janet Zelaya. Ernesto Vicencio. Giselle Dorgali. Fabian Mendoza. Tatevik Sadrarian. Eileen Babajanian. Farah Saleh. Cassie Mirza. Leanne Villa Rivera. Laura Hurtado. Allison Moncada. Cody Gomez. Carlos Santander. Brian Kirkness. Karen Spencer. Emma Clemens. Jalalotti. William Gosigny. Darrell Faith Elizardi. Jennifer Lauren Ngo. Dongchen Shu. Nana Otskuki. Roman Gania. Anthony Lava. Jacqueline Loza. Is it Quadra? What is it? Quadra? Okay. Juan Quadra. Vinita. Rahana Colusi. Sam Lee. Pablo Gomez. Michael Moki. Chalufas. Is it Georgie or George? George Chalufas. Samuel Edwards. Barbara Butters. Ana Rosa, what? Anguiano? Oh. Ana Rosa Anguiano. Brenda De La Cruz. Let's ask her. Yeah. What is it? Yesenia Gonzalez. Christina Michelle Molina Romero. Lorena Stoyacheva. Rachel Woolley. Nancy Partida. Jocelyn Caius. Lucy Ontiveros. Laura Velasquez. Chantel Ratcliffe. Claudia Ochoa. Sharvie Kong. Holly Moss. Allison Hockman. Tyler Eric. Monica Pang. Carissa Berger. Amine Minassian. Gagayan Jaluka. Lilith Shanazargian. Keiyoko Takahashi.
Arash Nekufar.
Did you Shavin?
Shavin Shakaria.
Okay. Arfan Rohania.
Irfan Rohaniafar.
Okay. Weissel. Okay.
Alexandria Rose Weissel.
Rana Sadeghi.
Rana Sadeghi.
Okay. Erasio. Okay.
Erasio.
Sophia Gore. Okay.
Sophia Gore.
Okay. Ina Phoenix Gore.
Ina Phoenix Gore.
Okay. Ranfo.
Mareka Monfo.
Okay. Karasimu.
Laura Karasimu.
Farwell.
Dana Farwell.
Okay. Micah Byers.
Micah Byers.
Okay. Ramos Natalie. Okay.
Natalie Ramos.
Noor Shaban. Correct.
Noor Shaban.
Dynasty Machado.
Dynasty Machado.
Ani Shadukamian.
Ani Shadukamian. Evelyn Perez.
Ha Young Choi. Right.
Han Young Choi.
Barbara Hibbets.
Barbara Hibbets.
Ellie. Okay. Mir Malaki. Say your name. Mir.
Eli Mirmalaksani.
Okay. Bagdoyan. Right. Okay.
Laura Bagdoyan.
Walima. Yes. Walima.
Kathleen Walima.
Fandino. Jesus Fandino. Right.
Jesus Fandino.
Collegian.
Chris Collegian.
Okay.
Holliston Coleman.
Top line.
Miguel Morales.
Kowalski.
Colton Kowalski.
Okay. Crystal Morella.
Kristen Morelos.
Okay. Rose Germangian.
Rose Dermangian.
Okay.
Tawny Main.
Okay. Okay. Christina Williams.
Christina Williams.
Okay. Emily Lorraine.
Lanchito. Emily Lorraine Lanchito. Landicho. Shandani Ray.
Okay. Gustavo Tolentino. Okay.
Gustavo Tolentino.
Malkasian. Yarwant Malkasian.
Yarwat Malkatian.
Key Tran. Okay.
Key Tran.
Gerald Ortiz.
Gerald Ortiz.
Raluca Moldovan.
Raluca Moldovan.
Bernstein. Okay.
Sarah Bernstein.
Glenda Rivera. Okay.
Glenda Rivera.
Rita Velasquez. Okay.
Margarita Velasquez.
Laura Garcia.
Laura Garcia.
Okay. Adriana Avila.
Adriana Avila.
Okay. Hernandez.
Denise Hernandez.
Okay. Antoine. Is that right? Antoine.
Antoine Bowman.
Currently top line. Jamie.
Jamie Heron Lee.
Okay. Marisol Solano. Okay.
Marisol Solano.
Humberto Solis Flores.
Humberto Solis Flores.
Samantha Goley.
Samantha Goley.
Okay.
Aaron Bricks.
Okay. Diggins.
Nicole Diggins.
Okay. Sharish.
Catherine Sharish.
Nercisian.
Lynette Narcissian.
Hambarchian.
Anias Hambarchian.
Manukian Gargani.
Donna Marmukian Gargani.
Sione Minasi.
Sione Minassian.
Helen Galician.
Helen Galician.
Okay. Evelyn Saucedo.
Evelyn Salcedo.
Irene Villalobos, right?
Irene Villalobos. Irving Alvarez. James Jones.
Christian, got it? Top line.
Christian Rodriguez.
Okay. Is it, what's your did you get that?
Ganesh Haq.
Vahe Elasi.
Vahe Elasi.
Okay.
Anita Azami.
Ariana Sharif.
Ariana Sharif.
Alboris, top line Alboris.
Alfonso Abores.
Okay. Maria Tumanian.
Maria Tumanian.
Okay. Lola No.
Lola No.
Akiko Aravallo.
Akiko Aravela.
Kevin.
Kevin Vasquez.
Magdalena.
Magdalena Martinez.
Okay.
Luisa M. Rodriguez. Luis M. Rodriguez.
Okay. Abraham Agopian.
Abraham Agopian.
Okay. Rima
Rima Valijan.
Monica, last name Chuprina? Chuprina.
Monica Chuprina.
Danitza Medina.
Danita Medina.
Okay. Farin Bakhtiari.
Farin Bakhtiari.
Okay. Jaime Morales.
Jaime Morales.
Okay. Got it, top line.
Russell Sweep.
Okay, got that.
Jennifer Franklin.
Unical.
Jennifer Unical. Ariel Ransom.
Okay, Abigail Moncada.
Abigail Moncada.
Okay, Manuel Rendon, right?
Marel Rendon Jr.
Fawaz Al-Abdullah, right? Okay.
Fawaz Al Abdullah.
Andrea Ameskita, right? Ameskita.
Andrea Amesquita.
Okay.
Vivian Lee.
Top line. Okay.
Jose Mercado.
Manjarez.
Manjarez. Casey Manjarez.
Shin.
Jessica Shin.
Meisner.
Trevor Meisner.
Quezada.
Andrew Kizada.
Nilu Rahimi. Okay.
Nilu Rahimi.
Miriam Jihasi. Okay.
Marianne Jihasi.
Okay. Taban Milani.
Taban Milani.
Okay. Ali Porkayat.
Ali Porkayat.
Okay.
Samuel Cohen.
Okay.
Robert Cohen.
Nicole Astorian.
Nicole Astorian.
Okay. Is it Carice Grimes?
Carice Grimes.
Okay. Ronald Palacios.
Ronald Palacios.
Okay. Castellanos.
Jennifer Castellanos.
Got it.
Elizabeth Chavez.
Okay. Henry.
Henry Lowe.
Is it Jamie Hollander?
Jamie Hollander.
Okay.
Sarah
Sarah Lindauer.
Lindauer.
Okay.
Jade
Jade Sarfati.
Sarfati.
Okay. Maria Elena Malone.
Maria Elena Milan.
Okay. Rocha.
Elena Rocha.
Lady.
Lady Rivas.
Renee
Renee
Orozco.
Leonard Orozco.
Okay.
Jessica
Jessica Moran.
Moran.
Okay. Suri. Yes. Suri.
Monica Suri.
Okay. Sahara.
Sahara Ramirez.
Okay.
Yvette Quevedo.
Javier Blas.
Javier Blas.
Okay. Merzayan. Yes.
Sarah Merzayan.
Martinson.
Sarah Martinson.
Melgar.
Katie Melgar.
Okay. So there's a Samia.
Stephanie Rosa Samia.
Okay. Maglich.
Christina Mazic.
Okay. Andre Dawoodian.
Andre Dawoodian.
Joanna Quijada. Okay.
Joanna Quijada.
Okay. Top line.
Bianca Rodriguez.
Crockham.
Arthur Crockham II.
Top line.
Jocelyn Harrison.
Tara Rumore.
Tara Pierre Rumore.
Okay. Top line.
Jennifer Song.
Okay.
Lonnie
Lonnie.
Hands.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yune Kim. Benjamin Plotkin.
Top line.
Jonathan Costello, I'm sorry.
Ilya.
Elia Benson.
Just repeat it. Don't say something. Benham Apa. Okay.
Benjamin Purnasser.
Top line.
Sandy Garcia Sanchez.
Anna Bunyatian.
Anna Bunyatian. Elizabeth Simmons.
Asha Jahan.
Asha Jahan.
Manuel Martinez. Okay.
You want to do it?
Manuel Martinez.
Heather Mermiston.
Heather Mermestein.
Melissa Duenas.
Melissa Duenas.
That's it. Good.
Thank you. Are you coming to the inside?
Sabrina Villascuas Penedwa. Melva Ramirez. Madeline Elmore. Carly Vicini. Laura Pepping.
Okay, Arpi Amirian, right?
Arpi Amirian. Sarah Avatisian. Lucine Jagalian. Amanda Rollinson.
Say your last name.
Philip Sagadakra.
Aitchison? Yes.
Sean Aitchison.
Bignod.
Marion Aru Vignod.
Okay, so Dominic Heaney? Okay, great. Okay, no problem.
Matthew Dominic Cheney.
All right. Robia Williams.
Robia Williams. Catherine Howe.
Okay. Pedro Gallegos.
Pedro Gallegos. Sean Snyder.
Nessel Road.
Jessica Nesselrode. Danielle Marie Gutierrez. Valerie Avila. Valerie Avila.
Okay, Salcedo Valencia.
Natalia Salcedo Valencia.
Zulema Ugalde.
Zulema Ugalde. Jasmine Olivares.
Nick Morrow.
Hope McMorrow.
Vercelli. Is it Vercelli?
Vercelli, yeah.
Samantha Bauer.
Jessica Vercelli. Samantha Bowers.
Okay,
Maeve Lyons. Maeve Lyons.
Pino.
Clara Pino. Kenneth Ring.
Michelle Morales.
Michelle Morales.
Top line.
Megan Ward.
Okay, so say your name here. Get right next to him, say it again.
Bozogmar Baradan Haristian. Sarah Thomas.
Christina Villanova.
Christina Villanova.
Okay, Marianne Brown.
Marion Brown.
Okay, Cinto.
Jennifer Cinto.
Elizabeth Rarescheid.
Elizabeth Rarescheid.
Ronsaro. Ronsiro.
Karine Ronsaro. Colleen Ronsaro.
White hair.
Aline Whitehair.
Okay, and Ben Callan.
Ben Callan.
Come on up closer. Amy.
Amy Pasquale.
Sarah Luna.
Lucero Luna.
Okay,
Julie Leach.
Eric Lima.
Eric Lima.
Okay, Sohelia Mazani.
Sohela Mazzani.
Okay, Paula Meza. Okay.
Paula Meza.
Alina Hayes.
Alina Hayes.
Rabindar Atwar.
Rabindar Atwar. Chelsea Hansen.
Thank you.
Michelle Zuniga.
Mario Herrera.
Mario Herrera.
Namra Wahid.
Namra Wahid.
Okay, Jeremiah.
Alex Geronia.
Benjamin Krasner. Okay.
Benjamin Krasner.
Stevie Kiernan Hovanesian.
Stevie Kiernan Hovanesian.
Anna
Anna Grigoyev.
Nagin Rashidi.
Nagin Rashidi.
Raquel Chacon, right?
Raquel Chacon. Summer Malone.
Beltran, right?
Katrina Beltran.
Sicilian, say your last name. Garamanian? Sicilian Garamanians.
Heather
Heather
Tixon.
Tixon. Shant Yarutsian. Wilson Tang. Michelle Haas. Alessandra Popovan. Chelsea Alvarez. Janet Soval. Teresa Knopf. David Mataki. Omid Oruji. Guadalupe Rodriguez Castro. Jennifer Romero.
Melanie Fessinger.
Melody Fessinger.
Maria Baldassaroni, Italian.
Maria Baldassaroni. Justin Raul Pardo. Julieta Gazarian. Okay. Lucy Vardapetian. Susie Morales. Okay, say your last name. Lucine Koshkarian. Christina Vardanian. Raquel Martinez. Dawn Lee. Caitlin Hannon. Tiffany Leung. Christopher Lopez. LaSalle Duong. Tamon Go. Julie McMahon. Keith Brennan. Stephen Kim. Joe Luback. Cynthia Godina. Judia Spilka. Catherine Peel. Adama? Jennifer Ardema. Jamie Sanchez. Jaime Sanchez. Natalia Cabral. Virginia Jean Lazari. Dane Remo. Matthew Kovacic. Melissa Lee Emerson. Maxwell Bradney. Joseph Kidd. Elizabeth Enriquez. Jessica Dorlack. Daniela Levine. Karen Zambroni. Sarah Elrod.
Bertil Ishui. Nelson Camacho. Ali Kayak.
Okay, Michael Kayak.
Michael Kayak.
Jessica Rodarte.
Jessica Rodarte.
Okay, Shuri Porn.
Sariporn Smith.
Melin Babian.
Malin Babayan.
Okay, is it Renette Akizian?
Renette Akizian.
Marine.
Marine Bambakian.
Okay, Lucia Holquin.
Lucia Holquin. Lucia Holguin.
Felicita Penas.
Felicita Penas.
Maxine Amando.
Maxine Amando.
Okay, Mary Hurd.
Mary Hurd.
Okay,
Tiffany Ernest.
Okay, thank you. Jose Reynoso.
Jose Reynoso.
Okay, Christine Elehino.
Christine Elehino.
Okay, Georgia.
Georgia Acosta.
David Topline.
David Williams. Jennifer Flowers.
Anna Page Hawes.
Anna Page Hawes.
Darren Smith Gaddis.
Darren Smith Gaddis.
Kia.
Kia Morris.
Mercy, say your name. Okay, Masharia. Waithero Masharia.
Mercy Waithero Masharia.
Thank you.
Stephen Morris.
Okay, Jennifer, great top line.
Jennifer Jensen.
Eleni Philippus.
Eleni Philippus.
Okay, Kevin Illico.
Kevin Illico.
Bernard Aquino.
Jan Bernard Aquino.
Okay, Justin Sentier.
Justin Sentian.
Hector Gonzalez.
Hector Gonzalez.
Timothy Alarcon.
Timothy Alarcon.
Nabil Salazar Mendez. Right?
Nabil Salazar Mendez.
Carolyn Kojin.
Carolyn Kojin.
That's right. Crystal Keebles.
Crystal Keebles.
Rebecca Wishart.
Rebecca Wishard.
Alden.
Alden Osborne Goodrich.
Slepikoff.
Taryn Slepikoff.
Okay, Abby Renee Blumberg.
Abby Renee Blumberg.
Shanila.
Natanzi.
Gomberg.
Greg Gomberg.
Vania.
Vania Garcia.
Shireen Navi.
Shireen Navi.
Michael Aloyan.
Michael Aloyan.
Elena Burekia.
Elena Bucravea.
Okay, Denrick Bautista.
Denrick Bautista.
Asara.
Amal Asaraf.
Okay, Liza.
Lisette Villanueva.
Okay, Jordan Kiefer. Right?
Jordan Kiefer.
Cesar de la Cruz.
Cesar de la Cruz.
Is it
April Jimenez.
Okay,
Christian Nishimoto.
Okay, Maldonado. Okay.
Fernando Maldonado.
Abel Martin.
Abel Martin.
Okay, is it Carolina? Carolina Garcia.
Carolina Garcia.
Okay, got it.
Christina Wilson.
Deanna Chittum, right?
Deanna Chittum.
Stein.
Joshua Stein.
Calvin Montano.
Calvin Montana Macera.
Okay, and
Jake Murata.
Okay, Ione is Tony Ariana Mitchell, right?
Tony Ariana Mitchell.
Okay, and Christopher Hernandez.
Christopher Hernandez.
Okay, got it.
Brandon Kaufman.
Okay, Segovia.
Alex Segovia.
Monroe.
Ashley Monroe.
Womack.
Aaron Womack.
Okay, Carla Monterosa.
Carla Monterosa.
Okay, honey, Tai Chien Lee. Taehyun.
Taehyun Lee.
Okay, Lorenzo Mucha.
Lorenzo Mucha.
Kathy Hui. Okay.
Taffy Hui.
Okay, Haruna Yamamoto. Yeah.
Haruna Yamamoto.
Valentine.
Jody Valentine.
Okay.
Linda Fytak.
Like Coca-Cola, Anthony James Cola.
Anthony James Cola.
Agnes Babood.
Agnes Babood.
Winley.
Gwyn Lee.
Okay. Melvin Middleton.
Melissa Malvin Middleton.
Okay.
Alexander McLaughlin.
Okay. Carlo Pena. Gotcha.
Carlo Pena.
Okay, Amanda Ernst.
Amanda Ernst.
Minazi and Alina Minazi.
Alina Minazian.
Okay. Tyler, is it Heathman?
Tyler Heathman.
Anastasia Novikava. Alexandro Colombo. Monique Garcia. Lloydia Bryan. Christopher Elisha. Christopher Aishaya. Eddie Manzanares. Kristen Fay. Okay.
Tiffany Espino.
Tiffany Espino. Jeffrey Pucaro. Shay Lipscomb. Gorwin Sandu. Jessica Morales. Tamara Gilmore. Megan May Miller. Marguerite Golobian. Carolyn Gonzalez. Dominique Osborne. Devin George. Isao Villa Lobos. Angela Carlson. John Popis. Courtney Nesset Ryan. Caitlin Brenner. Amber Bartmus. Michelle Tran. Emmanuel Enos. Nicole Dixon. Brianne Foster. Marlene Glenn. Alexa Muti. Samuel Skoma. Celia Sabreros. Ruben Vargas. Tatiana Kieswetter. Kevin Beatis. Alessia Matera. Anne Mary Hanna. David Dillon. Valerie Leal. Brianna or Brianna? Brianna or Brianna? Brianna Wilcox. Shalandra Juliet Polk. Tiffany Alia Davis. Courtney Leonard May. Mark Shipman. Marcus Rigsby. Abel Melgar. Alexander Ayas. Jennifer Reff. Trina Bay Larson. Leanne Sutton. James Marvin Bass. Lori Injajikian. Noah Lloyd. Catherine Noonan. Shara Runan. Ryan Akers. Darcy Rice. Nicolette Reyes. Karen Cardenti. Diana Voskanyan. Lauren Chapman. Yua Lee. Timothy Sheba. Christina Jones. You want to do something? Michael McCourt.
Hadir Hamad. Rachel Reyes.
Maricar Cabatuando.
Maricar Carbatuando. Alexandra Larson. Ashley Kritzer.
Okay, Schumann.
Michelle Schumann.
Okay, Selena Sarmiento.
Selena Sarmiento. Minol Tucker.
Spiro.
Joshua Sparrow.
Okay, Scanlon.
Timothy William Scanlon.
Okay, Watanabe.
Charlene Watanabe O'Toole.
Francesca.
Francesca Resurreccion. Alejandro Vasquez.
Right?
Blum. Andrew Blum. Julie Lamb.
Okay, Belia. Yes,
Belia
Belia.
Velez. Diane Rodriguez.
Colato.
Dennis Colato.
Okay, Diego Arias.
Diego Arias.
Okay, Castre John.
Elizabeth Castrejon.
Bonelli. Is it Caroline?
Caroline Bonelli.
Geraldine Saldana.
Geraldine Saldana.
Okay, Manzano.
Pamela Manzano.
Bernardo Fernandez.
Bernardo Fernandez.
Is it Ian Ruttenberg?
Ian Ruttenberg. Jesus Ruiz.
Okay. Is it Angela Hodeb? Yes.
Angela Hodeb.
Hymanson.
Danielle Hymanson.
Christian Cardenas.
Christian Cardenas.
Daisy Arevalo.
Daisy Arevalo.
Christy Locke.
Christy Locke.
Custard, right?
William Custard.
Irwin. Okay.
Travis Irwin.
Okay. Kitsis. Is that right? Kits.
Stephen Kitses.
Brownwell. Okay. That's
Cole Brownell.
Lucy Parmoxian.
Yes.
Lucy Parmatian. Marcelo Rosales.
Carrie O'Quinn.
Carrie O'Quinn.
Okay. Karina Quinn.
Karina Quinn.
Okay. Brianna or Brianna?
Brianna Juarez. Gonzalo Hernandez.
Quinones.
Gloria Quinones.
Okay. Valerio.
Janet Valerio.
Okay. Clapadlo.
Tracy Clapadlo.
Kathleen. Jamie, is it? Yes, Jamie. Okay.
Kathleen Jamie Barcina.
Okay. Tabitha Bayangos.
Tabitha Bayangos.
Okay. Chaparro.
Nathaniel Chaparro.
Okay. Jerem.
Stephen Jerems.
Kyle Suffolk.
Kyle Suffolk.
Cesar.
Cesar Rodriguez.
Kathleen Thornott.
Kathleen Thornott.
Eugene Beatrice Coronado.
Eugenia Beatriz Coronado.
Negocian.
Susanna Nicosian. Rosa Morales.
Okay. Rivera.
Emmanuel Rivera. Heather Lee. Heather Seltzer. I'm sorry, Jennifer Seltzer.
Melissa Yeagan. Say your last name, honey.
Yegiazarian.
Melissa Yegiozarian. David Priori.
Galvin.
Anna Galvis.
Jean Cope.
Jean Copper.
Miguel Castro. Top line.
Miguel Castro.
Andrew Munoz.
Andrew Munoz.
Okay. And it's Nada, right? Nada.
Nada. Nada Husharia.
Arena Haro.
Arena Parot.
Okay. Richardson Diana.
Diana Richardson.
Bain.
Christina Bain.
Nava. Paola.
Paella Nava.
Bailey.
Bailey Campbell.
Alness. Okay.
Leslie Alness.
Okay. Daynard, right?
Winter Daynard.
Okay. Top line.
Jessica Reyes.
Is it Zaraka Mitchell? Zerica.
Zerica Mitchell.
Shay Jingyao.
Shay Jingyao.
Becerra. Yes. Okay.
Miguel Pizarra.
Viadera, right?
Natasha Viadero. Shawnee West.
Edwin Salazar Herrera.
Edwin Salazar Herrera.
Lindo,
Brian Lindo. Brandon Mendez.
Okay.
Carlos Vasquez.
Randall Ramos.
Randall Ramos.
Lee Bascal. Baxal.
Raymond Lee Baxal.
Okay. Abelson.
Harry Abelson.
Bruns. Yes. Bruns.
Matt Bruns.
Okay. Rosenberg.
Paxton Rosenberg.
Palikas. Yeah.
Shalaya Palikas.
Okay.
Roman Spitzen.
Say your last name for him, honey.
Musikalian. Mikhail Musikalian.
Tanya Soto.
Tanya Soto.
Myers.
Jesse Myers.
Gabriella.
Gabriela Mendoza.
Feliciano.
Aurelio Feliciano.
Ellen
Ellen Medadian. Verna Vigil. Estefania Padilla. Elise Corral. Ruth Toruño. Kate Grayson. Alina Tukhiva. Christian Valle.
Dragos Bratu, is that right?
Dragos Bratu. Joshua Paul Carlos. Alfredo Carrasco. Ryan Duckworth. William Ruiz. Elena Bykov.
Margarita, say your last name? I didn't see it.
Margarita Kristiakova. Evelyn Castillo. Gabriela Garcia. Maria Rodriguez.
Babakanian? Yes. Okay.
Christine Babakanyan.
Parvanian, right? Is it
Tigran Parvanyan.
Gabriela Campos?
Gabriela Campos.
Teresa
Teresa
Ephraim?
Ephraim.
Garibaldi?
Taylor Garibaldi.
Kevin Getchus?
Kevin Getchus.
Reyes Andrade?
Carlos Reyes Andrade.
Aldrin Bigay?
Aldrin Bigay.
Chastain?
Susan Chansang.
Okay, Marissa or Marisa?
Marissa Young. Jesse Lopez.
Booth? Right?
Jesse Booth.
Okay,
June
June?
Yan.
Deshaun Brown?
Deshaun Brown.
Jesse Bridgewater?
Jesse Bridgewater.
Rigoberto Soto?
Rigoberto Soto.
Okay, hey, Giovanna, right? Yeah.
Giovanna Garcia.
Okay, Janan Sadradi?
Sadroi.
Sadradi.
Janan Sadrai.
Someyeda?
Eric Somieda.
Zoe Hopkins?
Zoe Hopkins.
Ursula Schmidt?
Ursula Schmidt.
Morales, thank you.
Vanessa Morales.
Luis Reyes?
Luis Reyes. Susan Simpson.
Evelyn Gutierrez?
Evelyn Gutierrez.
Dora Chavez?
Dora Chavez.
Robert Valle?
Robert Valle.
Catherine Placencia? I can't.
Catherine Placencia Emis.
Katie Darakian?
Darakian. Katie Darakshin. Catherine Brown. Lorna McCarthy. Sarah Colasso. Allison Hill.
Guardarda?
Carlos Gordado.
Glassford Holt?
Bailey Glassford Holt. Anna Shedd.
Daniel Dobey?
Daniel Dobey.
Huerta?
Mary Kathleen Huerta.
Brenda Zatano?
Brenda Zatano.
Barrera?
Brenda Barrera.
Matsuyama?
Dean Matsuyama.
Joshua Stepikoff?
Joshua Stepikoff.
Alyssa Paul?
Alyssa Paul.
Ashley Mendez?
Ashley Mendez.
Tiana Cohen?
Tiona Cohen.
Brennan
Brennan
Yak?
Yak.
Sky Privat?
Sky Privat.
Emily Blanco?
Emily Blanco.
Alada
Davichian. Elada Davichian. Amy Edgel.
Philippe? Is it Philippe? Yeah.
Yeah. Kenneth Philippe Katavius.
Thank you for everything. Oh, hi. And it's real, and that's my name, Nada.
Okay, just Nada.
Nada. We go back to the other side now? I'll be in Scotland before you.
Ladies, testing 1, 2, testing, 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 testing. Ladies and gentlemen, once more, President Harrison.
Now let us recognize all of those who have been honored today with our applause. Thank you, and congratulations, everybody. I would like to thank all of our university departments and programs, the Alumni Association, the University Foundation, Memorial Funds, employers, and other friends of the university who were the source of the Student Achievement Awards that we presented during this convocation. Without the parents, spouses, partners, significant others, and families who have supported students in attaining such excellence, this convocation would not be possible. And we want to thank once more all of the parents, spouses, and significant others of our students. Thank you. I think they're all in the parking lot somewhere. So thank you. I want to thank the Office of Student Involvement and Development, which coordinated this event. I want to thank Professor Matt Harris and the CSUN Jazz A Band, and all of those others who have helped to stage this incredible event. I now ask that our students, staff, faculty, and alumnus of CSUN rise for our university alma mater, Hail to the Matadors. Under the musical direction of Professor Matt Harris and the Jazz A Band, and performed by Sarah Salazar. You'll find the words to the alma mater in the back of your convocation program, and we encourage you to sing along. After the alma mater has concluded, please remain in your seats until the platform party and faculty have recessed. You're all invited to join us at the conclusion of a recessional for a reception on the Baramian Hall lawn to my right. We ask that all parents and guests please remain seated until the end of the recessional. I want to thank you finally for sharing this important occasion with us, and I want to particularly encourage our graduating seniors to wear their medallions very proudly at our commencement ceremonies over the next few days, and I will shake your hand again. Good day and congratulations.